Hello, 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 Oprah Insiders, and welcome to our very first. It's the first time ever we've done this. It's an Oprah Insider Roundtable, and we are psyched. It's a new series that we're doing where we invite you into deep conversations with thought leaders, change makers about topics that we're hoping will help you live your best life. So, first up, we're talking about becoming your best self. Oprah has said this many, many times that one of the best compliments she has ever received is when a woman walks up to her and says, "You know, Oprah, watching you be yourself helps me become more of myself," if that makes sense to you. It floors her every single time and fills her with such gratitude. That tells her that something is right or a good decision. We all think that that's pretty relatable, right? So when you feel truly comfortable in your own skin, everything just seems to work better. But here's the question: how in the world do you get there? Especially now, a lot of us are very confused. One thing is for sure, the past year and a half inspired a lot of people to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of thinking, a lot of meditating, a lot of wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right relationship? Do I even like this job? The Oprah team has heard from lots of people that they were inspired to rethink their priorities and give thought to who they are and what makes them truly happy. So we asked some of our friends. You all are our friends, aren't you, friends? Hello, friends.
Yes, we are friends.
We are friends, and chat about becoming more of yourself. Specifically, what in the world does that mean? Let me introduce you to them first, our panel, and how do you do that, becoming more of yourself? You know, Michelle Obama wrote a whole book. The title was Becoming. It sold over 12 million copies, so we're thinking this is a really good topic. First, we have you, Glennon Doyle. Good to see you, Glennon. She's the author of the #1 New York Times bestsellers, Untamed and Love Warrior. Glennon, I've got a Love Warrior t-shirt. Thank you. And the bestseller, Carry On Warrior. Glennon also has a new podcast. It's called We Can Do Hard Things. I love the title of that, Glennon, because we can do hard things. Coming up next, Ashley C. Ford. Ashley, you know, before we go any further, you know I want to know what the C stands for. Is it a secret?
It is not a secret. It is Cassandra, which means prophetess of doom and entangler of men.
Men.
Yes.
Best
Never forget.
name ever. Oh, I'm changing my name to Cassandra Doyle.
So it's Ashley, don't come for me, Ford, is essentially what you're saying.
Basically.
She's a journalist and the author of the memoir, Somebody's Daughter, one of Oprah's favorite books. It dives into her childhood growing up poor and Black in Indiana with a family fragmented by incarceration. In addition to her writing, Ashley is a podcaster too, and she has taught creative nonfiction writing at the New School. Glad to have you here, Ashley C. Ford. I like that.
Happy to be
And
here.
finally, last but certainly not least, is Dr. Anita Phillips. She's a trauma therapist and a life coach, known for her paradigm shifting insights at the intersection of mental health, spirituality, and culture. She has a podcast too. I feel like I'm left out of the podcast club, guys. Her podcast is called In the Light, which helps people evolve into the best version of themselves. Hello to you, Dr. Anita. Good to see you.
You too.
Anita, I just want to start with this about you, because I've heard great things about you from different friends of mine that said if you ever need help, that's who you should go to talk to. And I'm divorced, and I've been to 5 different marriage counselors at the time, went to 5 different ones. And in one of my sessions, I'm laying there and I was on the couch and I hear this. He was snoring, Anita. He was snoring.
Oh my gosh.
Is that a snore I hear? And then I lift my head up, and yes, he's sitting there. He's got his pad. He's got his pencil poised in the air. He's snoring. So I just picked up my purse, picked up my keys, and walked out the door and never came back to him. But I'm thinking, I wish I would have known you. You could have really helped me, I think, back in the day. And I'm thinking
I would have at least stayed awake. Yeah. I can promise that.
I would have been so grateful for that. So let's start with this guys, how things have changed this past year. There's been a lot of talk about what people missed during lockdown, but what about the stuff that you didn't miss? What is the one thing you started during isolation that you said to yourself, I'm never, ever going to start doing that again? Glennon, you want to start us off?
I feel like I have a very distinct, I have forgotten why we wear heels.
Oh,
I'm having a different clothes experience with my life. Like I'm looking at my closet thinking, why did I ever do any of this to myself? Heels make no sense to me suddenly. I'm like, oh, why are they trying to make us slower and in pain? And why do our legs have to look different? Like suddenly bras. What? Why does the world hate women? Why are they so uncomfortable? Why? Clothes. I have a different perspective on what I want to put on my body and what I will not put on my body. And the priorities being just comfort and feeling confident, powerful, and comfortable. And that's it at the end.
People say that heels, Glennon, give your leg a nice look. I don't know why they have to be so uncomfortable. So I hear you. I hear you on that. I'm also thinking there was just an actress who was in the news recently who said, I'm never going to wear a bra again. I think it was somebody who was on The Crown. She said, I started thinking about it. She goes, what is the purpose of them? What is the purpose of a bra? I'm never going to wear it again. Well, I'm not there yet. I'm still thinking a bra is a little help for me. I'm not giving mine up yet.
It's a beautiful thing. I don't do hard pants anymore. If they're hard, denim, anything that like is restrictive, anything that I have found a way out. I spent my entire quarantine figuring out how to get out of hard pants, and I'm not going back in personally.
So we can do soft things. We can do soft things.
We can do soft things.
Actually, people are concerned though about their weight. A lot of people, myself included, certainly gained weight during this pandemic. People call it the quarantine 10, the quarantine 15. What are you thinking, Dr. Anita?
I'm thinking that it was 20, actually, not 10 or 15. I definitely put on the 20-20-20, and I still have it. And, it's been challenging. I didn't notice it going on, but when it was time to put on hard pants, which maybe I need to rethink that now, the pants told the story. And, it's actually been really challenging because I have to adjust to how I see myself and accept a new shape of me. And it's been more challenging than I expected. So I'm needing to be really intentional about it because with women, there's so much shame attached to weight and size. And yeah, I'm not exempt. So I'm regaining my balance and my generosity towards my body.
Yeah. Did you not have a generosity towards your body before? Was it something that you were very conscious of before? Because I confess I'm a slave to the number. I get on the scale. You should not even weigh yourself. Forget about the number. Just base it on how you feel and how your clothes fit. But I'm still sort of a slave to the number. Were you not generous with your body before?
I was more I felt like I was, but maybe I wasn't because I felt like it was okay. And I'm with you with the scale because I'm wearing a Spanx right now. So I am definitely aware of that. And then I'm getting a little older. I see 50 coming around the corner and my body's changing. And I need to re-up my whole relationship with what my body's doing.
I think 50 is a great number, I have to say. And it's so changed now, Anita, because I remember when my mom turned 50, I'm 66. So when my mom turned 50, I thought that was so freaking old. And I thought, oh my gosh, how much longer?
Yeah.
Now you look at that and you think 50 is woohoo. For many people, that's when I think.
Right. It doesn't sound old anymore. It used to, but now it doesn't.
Let's get started. Ashley, what about you? I know you said hard pants.
Hard pants is one of them. I think another thing that I gave up or even was forced to give up during the pandemic that I'll continue is I don't make plans with people I don't want to see anymore. If there's someone I don't want to see, I don't pretend. Like there was always some reason. There was always like, I chose a lot of people over me. I think that's one of the major shifts that I had during the pandemic was learning how to really be on my own side and not just in a protective way, but also just in a loving way. thinking of things in terms of if I had a child, would I force them to go spend time with a child who they did not like and who they didn't want to spend time with, and who, when they spent time with that person, they felt worse about themselves or bad about themselves, or they never had a good experience? Would I force them to go spend time with that child just because I had convinced myself that was the right thing to do? Absolutely not. So why would I do that to myself? I don't know, but I'm not going to do it anymore.
God, I so
Cassandra,
love that.
Cassandra, yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Cassandra's coming out. Cassandra's coming
But is it, those are both related. The clothes,
Yeah.
the not going, it's like we have had time to think about who we are and what we want and what we will not accept anymore, whether it's stilettos or that jerk that we've been going to lunch with forever for some reason. It's being fiercely on our own side and not changing for the world, but like changing our friends and our clothes to fit us.
Yes.
Well, I'm single. I found being single in the pandemic was very hard. And in the beginning, we were even broadcasting from home. So I literally never left the house. I was afraid, number one, of COVID. Number two, technically, you can do it that way. So I found myself, guys, missing people I don't even like. So I need to get back to Ashley's thing about I'm not going to spend time with people that I really don't want to spend time with. You know, there was a security guy, I think it was Gavin DeBecker, but I'm not quite, but I think it was him, where in his book, he wrote, "No is a complete sentence." So I would always find when people would ask me to do something that I don't want to do, I would say, well, I wish I could, but I have to do blah, 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 blah. Oprah says this too. Gayle, why don't you just remember what Gavin says? No is a complete sentence. I always feel I have to offer an explanation if people ask me to do something and I can't or don't want to do it. None of you suffer from that or have that issue, it seems.
I used to. I'll say that for sure. I definitely used to. I think what happened, honestly, was that I started liking myself a whole lot. Like like when I started prioritizing doing things that I like and my comfort and my hobbies and my interests, and, you know, not that I don't engage with other people, but just that I prioritize mine for me. I started really liking my own company in a way that other people then had to compete with. Not necessarily like it's like if I'm gonna hang out with you, is it gonna be better than just hanging out with me? Because that's what I need in order to hang out with you now.
Great. So on the flip side, guys, what is something that you got to do during the pandemic that you'd like to continue when things go back to normal? Anita?
That's an easy one for me. I got to spend so much time with my adult children. My son's 23 and my daughter is 19, but she is 19 going on 39. And they both were out of the house. So we were empty nest for like 6 months before the pandemic hit. And then our children needed to come home and live with us. And at first I was like, oh gosh, you know, we just got our little empty nest thing going. Man, I loved spending time with them and getting to know them as adults and laying this foundation for our adult relationship. And it just made me think, man, we rush our kids out of the house. It's like, okay, you're 18, you got to go to college, you got to do that. And I
get a job.
Right. And I do want you to get a job and keep a job. You can be off my payroll, but still be at the house. And so we had them at the house, but I loved spending that time with my family. And that's something I'm not willing to reduce. I'm not willing to give up how much time we got to spend together. That was amazing. So yeah, it was surprising and amazing.
You know, this pandemic seemed to make people either grow closer or it drove them apart.
Well, it told the truth. It told the truth about the relationship. So either we weren't close and now that we're trapped in this house together, it is super duper clear, or we were always crazy about each other and we like each other. And so we're enjoying this. It told the truth, and that busted up a lot of relationships that needed busting. And I think it's because it told the truth. Yeah.
What about you? Are there things that you'd like to continue returning back to once we go back to normal?
Yes. I mean, I think that this time we live in a culture that so values going and productivity and showing up and really caters to an extroverted way of being. And I think this pandemic gave me a chance to live my best life in some ways, in terms of much more time alone, slower, not showing up all the time, not, a lot of thinking time. And I have a child who is more like me, more introverted, and it gave her a chance to live more in tune to who she really is. Right.
Mhm.
And it made me see
Yeah.
that it's not just, it doesn't have to be the way the culture has set it up in terms of life being catering to productivity. And I want to decide how my life runs and bring much more of this way of life that is truer to me into the after. I'm not starting up again. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to pretend like the entire world, revolves around me showing up 7 million places anymore.
Ashley, what about you in terms of things returning to normal, something that you want to continue doing?
I moved back to Indiana during the pandemic from Brooklyn,
From
which,
where? From
from
where?
Brooklyn, New York,
Oh,
where, like coming back, there were quite a few people who were concerned that the only reason I'd come back to Indiana must be because I was out of money. Luckily, that was not the case. I came back because I actually wanted to. I came back because the people who make me feel most loved and emotionally safe and cared for, and the people who I feel deeply in community with, are people who live here. And I wanted those people to be 10 minutes away and not a flight away.
Some people experience anxiety as the world was opening back up. And maybe people would say they didn't want to return to a traditional office setting. I'm in the office today, but even coming in, it just feels weird. Either there's not very many people here. When you see somebody, it's sort of, have you been vaccinated? Okay, we can hug. Certainly change. And some people are saying they don't want to return to a traditional office setting, while others continue to be very worried about their health. Have any of you guys experienced any anxiety?
I've been doing pretty well with it. I'm hopped up on, immune system boosting vitamins and my vaccinations. I've been doing pretty well with it. But a lot of people are struggling, and I don't want people to brush it off. Anxiety went through the roof during the pandemic, and so it's real. And I want to throw out a term that people don't hear a lot: agoraphobia, which is a type of anxiety disorder that is associated with fear of being in places that you might not be able to get out safely from. And if anybody feels like that anxiety is going a little further than what seems normal, I want you to pay attention to that. It's okay. We just went through an incredibly difficult time. Some of us have been shaken up in ways that are going to have a ripple effect for some time in our lives. So the therapy office is looking better and better. But we're going to see people dealing with agoraphobia, different anxiety disorders more because of having been inside and developed a fear of being outside. So for me, and I could easily get there, during the pandemic, I was actually conscious of making sure that I took care of myself. Even when I couldn't go into public places, when I would be in my meditation space, sometimes I would envision myself walking around an airport or a mall and allowing myself to see that as a positive thing so that I wouldn't get a stigma attached to it. And so that's something that people can start to do if they're anxious, to start visualizing yourself peacefully in places where you used to frequent. Because what we don't want is to have anxiety limiting our movement. Now, if you're choosing to no longer run the race in the fast lane, that's cool.
Yeah.
If it's a choice.
Yeah.
And I want people to make those kind of choices. But if anxiety's holding you back, don't ignore that. I want people to care their mental health, because it won't get better necessarily on its own.
That's such an important distinction, though, that you just said. That rung a bell to me. So if it's something that you want to do, but your anxiety is holding you back, that's right, when you pay attention. But if it's something that you don't want to do, then you just don't do it. You don't have a problem. You just have a decision.
Yeah, if you're choosing, then you're going to have that kind of freedom. And I think all of us have said this today in one way or another, that during the pandemic, we cast off, I can't and I have to. And we picked up, I choose and I choose not to. And the extent to which that will shift your experience of power in your life, just to say, I choose not to do that, or I choose to do that. I don't have to do anything. I can do whatever I want. Those choices are empowering. If you have a sense of empowerment and choice, you're good. If you feel restrained and afraid, then that's something that I want us to dig into a little more.
Part of why we're talking about, becoming more of yourself at this particular time is because everything that's gone on in the past year and a half, it's encouraged people to do a whole lot of soul searching. I mean, dig down deep, roll it around, see what's there. I'm curious, how do you all know when you're being fully yourself? Oprah has an interesting thing that she did on her show years ago where people say, she asked people, what do you want? And inevitably, one of the top 3 answers was, I just want to be happy. And she would follow up with, well, what would make you happy? And they'd go, I mean, it was almost like a question people didn't know the answer to. So Glennon, I'd like to start with you on this one. How do you know when you're really being truly yourself? I think a lot of people are struggling with, who is she? Who are they?
Well, I think that when I think about myself as a fixed thing I'm trying to be, it never goes well, right? Because who I am is intuition, emotion, imagination. So it's changing, fluid all the time, right? So the way I think about it is the way I got sober, which was that the only way I know I'm being myself is when I don't have two selves, when I don't have an inner self that's saying certain things and having certain feelings and liking certain people and wanting to do certain things, and then an outer self who's doing something completely different, right? So it's that idea of integrity, living with integrity, meaning not doing the right thing, because what the hell is that? But being integrated, right? That like how I really feel is what I'm really saying. And what I really want is what I'm really choosing. So just the one self, right? Not having a self that's dying inside and a self that's living to please, but matching in any given moment.
Did it take some work to get there for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had the blessing of being a person who's had several mental health crises. Like, I truly believe that in our culture.
Call it a blessing? You call it a blessing?
It's the luckiest thing in the world because we accidentally forget to teach children and human beings how to human, right? You have to have I was a teacher. I spent 6 months teaching my kids about ancient Egypt hieroglyphics, but never like, here's what feelings are and how to deal with that. Like, it's amazing. So when you have a mental health crisis, you have the gift of being parts of groups, programs where they actually teach you how to be a human in the world. And it's often the only people who get that gift or that sort of training are people who have some kind of crisis.
Absolutely. And it's emotional crisis, because we are taught to suppress our emotions so much and that our mind is like the king. Our mind is not king. Your heart is really king. And we have not learned to live from that space. And so finally, the heart making so much noise, people can't quiet it. Then they show up at my office and they're like, how do I quiet it? And that's my answer. Don't. Like, listen to this voice that's finally increased in volume enough to guide you. So I completely agree with you. And just hearing that, people relax. And so I think that is the beginning of that journey to being your authentic self, is that deep breath feeling. When I'm myself most when I have that sense of filling my lungs. It's just, I'm fully breathing. And people can get to that space, but the heart has to guide you there. Got to listen to those emotions.
And to know in this moment, I am okay. I am okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Ashley? When do you know that you are being truly yourself?
I think I know I'm being truly myself when I sometimes feel like every once in a while there's like this veil that is lifted. And for a second, I see my real life. And I see how many of the things I wanted that are here and available for me. I see the kind of love I dreamed of in friendship and in family and romantically. And I see how it's showed up, in my husband and my friends and my sister and my dog. Like, I just have this moment all of a sudden where I'm like, oh my God, you did it. Like, you did it. Like, the things that are most important to you are in your life happily. That is wild. And I think that those are the moments when I feel most like myself, because those are the moments when I see myself without the projection of what I think anybody else would want me to want or want me to have or want me to be. It's when I am most in tune with like, wait a minute, what do I want? Oh, that's what I want. Oh, I have it here, 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 and here. And it's like, oh my God, like just for a second, it reminds me of being in second grade and getting glasses for the first time and putting them on and realizing that I could see the leaves on the trees from the road and that I didn't have to actually climb the tree and be in it to see the leaves. That was wild to me. And that's how it feels sometimes when that veil is lifted and when I get that clear picture of myself. It reminds me a lot of what Glennon and Dr. Anita said. It's this lining up, this integration. It's like every version of me that I've ever been is lined up and pointing forward at the same time. And it's just like, yeah, we're on the right path. We found it.
Right page. But I so know what you mean about glasses. You know, I wear glasses or contact lenses. And when I was in elementary school, I was living in Turkey at the time, and I stepped off the curb and got hit by a truck. And the truck driver says that I literally looked at him, stepped off the curb and into the path of traffic. I never saw the truck. I just thought everybody saw the world so blurry. So when I got glasses for the first time, I went, oh my God, everything is so clear. This is how people see? You know, when you're a kid, it never even occurred to me to question. I guess I didn't even know it was blurry, but to get your first pair of glasses, they were not cute glasses, but at least I could see. It was like a whole new world. Yeah. Do you think as living authentically takes continuous work, Dr. Anita?
Absolutely, because each new environment that you step into, you have to have that or develop that intuition that says, I'm checking the temperature of this new space. Is this right for me? What adjustments need to be made? Because the world isn't going to always cooperate with your decision to live authentically. And so we have to maintain that. We continue to work at it and stay self-aware, because it'll sneak up on you, especially if you're dealing with trauma or you're working through other issues. That inauthenticity will try to sneak back in as people pleasing, as not being a problem for people, as not wanting to take up too much space. And so I think there's a self-awareness that has to be maintained. It's not a one and done situation.
So, Glenn, how do you make sure that you really are staying true to yourself and what makes you happy, what makes you happiest, and not something that other people are, and it's not someone else's idea of what should make you happiest?
Well, it tends to be pretty simple for me because I just tend to get really bitter and terrible. Like if I am in a situation that I don't want to be in, I am not immediately like, well, this is not my choice, and I believe and live authentically. Like usually it takes me several weeks of just bitching and moaning. And then I notice that I'm doing that. At some point I notice that I'm complaining a lot or I'm feeling bitter or something. And that's my signal, right? Or one of my most important markers to know that I'm out of integrity is when I find myself explaining myself a lot or justifying something, right? If I find myself explaining a lot or being defensive, that means I've forgotten that I'm a grown-up who gets to make my own decisions and that nobody can take it from me. And then I remember to make a decision. And then I have this other blessing that for me, if I'm living out of integrity for a long time, my body starts to shut down. That sounds very woo-woo, and I don't know if anyone else has that. You do?
No.
Yeah, I get sleepy. No. This incredible fatigue. And when I get that, I'm just like, Anita, wake up in more than one way, because everything starts to shut down. Totally get that.
People need to pay attention to our bodies, because our bodies are really here to tell you, this isn't working for you. I know. And we think, no, I'll plow through. It's never good. Ashley, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, because I agree wholeheartedly. Like, this is all the stuff that I love talking about with people. I know it's weird and vague and intense, but I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. This means something. Yeah, it just, that idea that these things live in your body when you don't take care of them. Glennon, when you talked about how you become like bitter, I remember reading, when I first got the early copy of Untamed, reading about the cheetah that, like, after she chased this rabbit, and after this dirty rabbit, and like she'd been put away again, kind of stalking the gate. and your daughter saying like she's remembering her wild, like she's remembering that she's wild. And I think that's what happens to me when I sign on to something, when I say yes to something that I don't want to do, when I get into something that I'm like, I see how this will make other people happy for me, even if it doesn't make me happy for me. It's never a good experience for anybody, because I sort of remember my wild, and I do become so defensive. I do become so, in some cases, just like acidic, like very, like I can't bring compassion and kindness into the place where I want to, because I don't have any for myself in that place. When I just made the decision to do this thing, knowing that I didn't want to do it, knowing that it wouldn't feel good to me, I took all the compassion and kindness for myself out of the equation. And now I don't have any to give to anybody else in this.
I love that.
So I have to get out of it.
It's like when you find yourself over and over again saying, how could they do this to me? How could they do this to me? And then there's this moment where you're like, oh, wait, how could I do this to me?
Because I knew.
Yeah.
Right. Because I knew.
This to me? I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm the one who keeps showing up.
Yeah.
Right?
Because Glennon, it's like, what's the common denominator there? You.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be on my tombstone, Gayle. That is the story of my life. Yes. Yes.
I think that line is so important that Glennon just pointed out, because some people are super extroverted. Like, I think we're all kind of colluding around how introverted we can be, but some people are super extroverted. They love to give, they love to be there for a person, they love to say yes. And that's okay. Like, I never want any of my clients to feel like I'm telling them they can't be that person. You must learn to say no immediately. Like, that's not authentic for them. But as soon as the giving isn't free, as soon as it isn't free, and a lot of times our self-awareness isn't tuned in to catch that. Sometimes it's a little thing in your stomach. Sometimes it's a little sweat on your palms that says this isn't free. Like, if this person doesn't show a certain appreciation, or they don't return this later, I'm going to be upset. If it's not free, then stop. Now, your free you have way more free than me, right? My free low level might be low, and someone else's might be super high. That's fine. Be you. We all need those people in the world. But as soon as it's not entirely free, you're not entirely free.
Very nice.
Retweet, Dr.
Retweet.
I will download Twitter just for that.
No,
don't. Yeah, I was just about to say, stay away from Twitter. Don't do it, Dr.
Just kidding.
I can tell you are way too wise. Way too wise.
Scary place. Twitter is the scary place.
Ashley, in your memoir, Somebody's Daughter, you certainly open up about your own family, including, how should we say, a very complicated relationship with your mom and your incarcerated dad. How do you think our family relationships, whatever they may be, factor into who we are? It's also relevant. Family relationships and family dynamics can really be searing.
Yes, those are the first people we belong to. Those are the first people we know of ourselves belonging to. And our understanding of them in our bodies and in our minds as we grow are people who are supposed to be on our team. Like, kind of no matter what, like, that's what we grow up believing.
Ashley, you always hear blood is thicker than water.
Which is actually not the quote. The quote, like, that's not even the quote. The quote is that the blood of friendship, I believe, is thicker than the water of the womb. So that is the actual quote. The actual quote means the opposite of what we use it for. It means that our chosen bonds can be much thicker and much more important than the bonds we are born into or the circumstances that we are born into.
I've never heard that. That's so interesting to me. Because blood is thicker than it has always meant, of course, family trumps everything. Yeah.
Yes. And I recently discovered that too, which is, just one of those things that that's why it's so important that we interrogate our beliefs about things that we think of as standard, because normal and common are not the same thing. There are a lot of things that might happen in your community, in your family, in a society that are common, but that doesn't make them normal and that doesn't make them right.
That's so good.
And I think
So
that
good.
family is one of those things that it is important for us to understand, in so much as it gives us what we need in order to like be our full selves and move forward and learn how to have some of those foundational relationships to like practice being the kind of person that we want to be in the world. Instead, what a lot of people end up in as children is an oppressive structure where they are essentially taught that you are not even really a person until you start making money.
Mm.
And we
Yes.
don't want that. I don't want that for anybody, any human being to believe about themselves. So the decision to write about my family this way was the decision to write about this gray area where we do love our families. Like, and a lot of times that feels embedded in us, like we must love them. But at the same time, if they are not treating us well, then we are not being loved well.
Mm.
And as much as we may have this deep bond of feeling for them, being loved well by ourselves and by the people who claim to love us is the epitome of our birthright as human beings. I think that is the center of our birthright as people.
All right, Ashley. Ashley
Ashley Ford.
Sorry, you guys.
She's just a genius. She's a freaking genius.
True.
But also,
I read all your books and I've been watching Gayle for years. So
Glennon, where did you get the courage to be so open and so honest to your friends and your family, really the whole world, about being in love with Abby? Where did that come from? Because at the time, that was quite a talker. Where did you get, what advice do you have for others that might be afraid to live so authentically because they're worried about what others may think? But I want to know, where did it come from for you? Did it take courage to make that step?
sure. Yeah. I mean, the first thing I'm going to answer that in 1 second, Gayle, but I just want to say, Ashley, that I think it's so amazing that is the thesis of your book, right? About what you just said about so the book is so much about childhood, about all of our childhoods and what the number it does on us, good and bad.
mm-hmm.
But the fact that now your biggest passion is to go be with children and love them the way that your model of beautiful love, and you're doing that and you're aligning this healing and passing it on and being the person that you needed when you were younger. I just think it's beautiful. And now back to your question, Gayle. I know that the reason that I had the courage to do that is because I have one thing, and my one thing is my sobriety. And I feel very blessed about that I have a life where things can be very clear and decisions are very clear because I only have one thing. And what I know about my sobriety is that it's completely based on living with integrity, which just means telling the truth at any given moment. Mm-hmm. So when people were saying you can tell this, but it'll be throwing your career away, it'll be throwing your fans away, it'll be throwing your book away, it'll be what I was able to say, okay, because I have this one thing. So like, no matter what happens, I'm just going to do this one thing. Now, what I secretly believe.
Were you really told you were going to be throwing your career away?
Yes. So I was at many times, but I mean, I was at one particular meeting where there was a lot of people at a table. And one of the people that I trust most in my career turned to me and said, you can do this now, but I want you to know with full well that this will be career suicide for you.
Wow.
And that was with a lot of people there. So yes, it was very direct. Mm-hmm. But I always had this secret knowing that if that happened, that would be okay. And that I also knew it wouldn't happen because people respond to truth. Mm-hmm. People respond to truth, even if it's messy, even if it's, you happen to be a Christian who suddenly turns into a lesbian, whatever it is, as dramatic as it is, people do respond to truth. And it creates this freedom is contagious. Like once somebody lives boldly and authentically, people are pissed off at first. And then they go, wait, if she can do that, I wonder if I can do that. And like this ripple, I saw it in my family. My son came out to us, a year after I announced to the world about Abby. And we all thought, I wonder if he would have had we not lived authentically. Yeah.
I just say people respond to the truth. Dr. Anita, curious from your perspective about people who are afraid to live authentically, or in Glennon's case, tell the truth. Do you think it's as simple as that, as telling the truth? And sometimes telling the truth, as you said, Glennon, is very messy.
Mhm.
What
It is
advice
as
do you
simple as
have?
that. I think it
It
is as simple
is.
as that. I have something I like to say a lot. It's not complicated, but it is hard.
Ah,
So it is as simple as that. It's not complicated, but it can be really hard. Yeah, and a lot of things that aren't hard are just hard. We complicate them because we're overthinking them and we're trying to come up with 10 scenarios and we have all these reasons why this can't work and that can't work. And we want to believe it's complicated because that gives us an excuse to spend months, years, decades stuck in neutral. But when you finally accept that it is not complicated at all, but it is hard, then you just decide, am I going to choose to do this or not to? Because it's hard. That's the decision factor, but it's rarely complicated. It's hardly ever complicated.
wow. Oh, I like that. So anything you want to add to that? I love it's not complicated. It can be complicated.
No, she just murked that. That's exactly what that's exactly it. I just wrote that down. So yeah,
No,
forever and ever.
it's not,
Thank you, Dr. Anita.
Yes.
it's not complicated, but it is hard.
And by the way,
Yeah.
the other way is hard too. That's the thing.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Yes.
we are trained to think, oh, telling the truth is too hard, living authentically is too hard. You know what's hard? Not.
Yeah, the choice
Pretending.
is hard. Yeah, that's it. But yeah.
It's hard either way. It's hard
Mhm.
to tell the truth and lose some people. By the way, they're always the people you were meant to lose, right? So you live free. But it's also hard to twist yourself into knots and not live your one beautiful and precious life the way that you were supposed to live it. So it's just like choosing your hard. Like, what's the right kind of
Yes.
hard? Because it's all hard.
Yes. I think a lot of times the
Agreed.
choice people are making is, am I going to risk getting hurt by other people or am I going to hurt me?
Yes.
And that's the place where I think a lot of us get stuck, where we want to be in control of the hurt. But I'm not going to be my own bully. There's enough in the world that wants to harm me and bring me pain and take me down or whatever. Not everything in the world, but there's enough out there. And I'm not going to help it. I'm not on whatever. I'm not on the side of what wants to end me. I'm on the side of my life. So, yeah.
Love that. Love that.
Beautifully said. Let's end on this note, guys. When you're not happy, what you do to recenter, what gives you the greatest joy. And when you're not happy, I heard you, Anita, Dr. Anita, at the beginning about your children being home, but when you're not happy, what do you do to recenter, to get back on track?
I pay attention to the temporal nature of that mood. There's a difference between being happy and being deeply satisfied with your life. I'm deeply satisfied with the life that I'm built and I'm building, but I'm not happy every moment. And so when happiness is absent, I need to be clear about the temporal nature of that, because there are going to be negative emotions that'll be winning sometimes, but it's temporary. What do I need to find out from this emotional state? Am I afraid? Am I angry? Am I sad? There's 3 basics, right? Which one of these is it? And what do I need to do to travel through this moment and get back to the happy, joyful emotions that I enjoy?
I like what you said, afraid, anger, and sad. And what do I need to do to get back to? I like that. Yeah. You guys, I need to keep a paper and a pen at all times talking. Ashley, what about you?
I think that the thing that I do that helps me recenter most often is I feed myself, which doesn't necessarily mean food. Like sometimes, though it can mean food, I do like to find a way to feed myself something that tastes good and feels good to my body. Spending that time doing something specifically for me that nourishes me feels really, really good to me and helps me reset. I also find ways to, feed my spirit. So maybe sometimes that's calling my best friend. Maybe sometimes that's getting online and going on like Donors Choose and finding like some teacher's classroom that needs a bunch of, supplies or whatever, and trying to like donate and figure out if I can like help them meet that goal that day. Sometimes it's a nap, whatever it takes to feed me and to pour back into me. Not necessarily so that I can get back to happiness, but so that when happiness inevitably shows back up, I'm ready for it. And I can be in it. So yeah.
Sometimes it's as simple as a nap. Sometimes for me, it's something with some icing. I've been known to eat it right out of the can.
Yes.
Naked, it's even more satisfying. But Glennon, can you close it out? Can you close this out?
Yeah, I mean, I learned, I was a person who's deeply sensitive and has struggled with addiction and anxiety and depression my whole life. I have had to remove happiness as the goal, right? For me, happiness, that's something that we learn culturally because we are all uncomfortable with discomfort. But happiness is not the goal for me. In an early recovery meeting, some woman said to me, being human is not about feeling happy, it's about feeling everything. So for me, as long as I am not numbing out and disassociating, right? As long as I am feeling present in my own body, feeling the anger, feeling the sadness, feeling all of it, letting it do its work in me, that's my goal, is to just be fully human, to be fully alive, to feel it all. When happiness comes, that's great. But I have found in my life that the comfortable emotions like happiness are often just recess, like the classes. The times when I learn the most about myself, when I'm serving the world the best, when I'm showing up deeply, I learn the most often in the uncomfortable emotions, right? And often toxic positivity or this quest for happiness all the time is just avoidance, right? So happy, great, yay. But also my goal is to just feel it all. And I've also learned that when I'm thinking big, meaning big feelings, big problems, that's my signal to act small. That once a day, when I figure out I hate my life, I hate myself, I hate my hair, I hate my job, I hate my family, I hate my state, I hate my career, I need to change it all. But I really usually need is a glass of water.
Yeah. Yeah.